Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm going to show you a game in which I had a sacrifice with several different options and a ton of calculation, and your task, if you want to do it, will be to stop, think, calculate the sacrifice correctly, and yeah, have an advantage in this position. Okay, so I faced another low-rated opponent because I had a rough tournament. He started knight f3, and after d5 he went for the Nimzo-Larsen, and in fact he did go for the double fianchetto. So we played a position I knew well and that I played many times before. Okay, so knight f6, bishop b2, bishop f5, g3. Okay, and white is playing a double fianchetto. We don't know if white is going to go for d3 e4, maybe d3 c4. There are many setups for white. Black wants to go e6, c6, a5 and undermine the queenside pawn structure. Okay, so e6, bishop g2, h6. I also could have played bishop e7, but this is the main move. d3, bishop e7, knight bd2, and bishop h7. Again, castles is just as good. The idea is you of course don't want to allow knight h4 winning your bishop. This is a strong bishop, and once you launch an attack on the queen side, this is going to be your main weapon. Okay, rook e1 signifying that e4 is coming, so c6 reinforcing the center, and e4. And we are now in a mainline position on move 10. This has been played over 50 times before on the highest level. It's a well-known position, and black has only one move, and that's a5. The idea is a4, undermining the structure. And here white has a choice of playing e5 or not playing e5. The best move by far is a3, simply preventing black's idea, and this is again more than 50 grandmaster games. a3 is best. a4 leaves a weakness on b4, so either knight a6, knight b4, or b5, or bishop b4. a4 isn't as good. But my opponent played e5, and I was really happy to see this, because this now defines the pawn structure. And if you notice, I haven't developed my b8 knight yet, because I know that some people want to go e5 in these positions, and having a knight on d7 is much better than having the knight on e8, especially since this knight could come to b4 if he plays a4. And after knight f to d7, he did in fact play a4. Again, it would have been better to play a3. Now he's leaving me with a weakness to exploit, and if you turned on the engine in this position, the position is more than -1 for black. And I actually know the evaluation of this because I've been studying this setup a lot. And the best move is b5, which I knew. But once you play b5 and ab5, cb5, knight d4, b4, now you switched to having a weakness on c3 you can try and exploit. And the idea is knight a6, c7, b5, c3 eventually, once you get a rook to c8. But this is very hard to implement. Also, it's very hard to break through the queenside pawn chain. So even though the engine gives this as best, I just never really know how to approach these positions, and I don't like playing them. I don't see an advantage I can exploit, especially since white is just going to continue f4, f5. So instead I went for the idea I know better and I like better, knight a6. Now this is still better for black, but it's not optimal. Okay, knight d4 by white is the best move, freeing the f pawn. And now I could have gone knight b4 straight away, but I went queen b6. This plays against f4 because in many positions after f4 I have c5 and c4, chasing the knight away with tempo, and either winning the b pawn or winning the d pawn. So if he plays f4 here, then c5, and of course black is much better. So he played queen e2, I played knight b4, attacking the c2 pawn. Now you can already see the pressure mounting on white's position. It's not really clear how black is going to break through, but it's going to involve either knight d3 or knight c2 at some point. Rook ac1 played and rook ac8. Now rook ac8 isn't ideal. I should have played rook a b8 because my rook is more useful on the b file in the future. H4 and knight c5. Okay, now the pressure is really mounting on the white position with all of these pieces looking towards this pawn structure, and he continued bishop h3. I played rook fe8 because I was afraid that in some positions there could be knight e6, and yeah, I didn't want to leave my bishop hanging, especially if I'm gonna try to get to the e pawn. In some lines I need my rook defending the e file. It was probably better to go rook d8 and then to bring the bishop back to f8, but rook fe8 isn't bad. King h2 on pinning. Okay, and now have a think. In this position there is a strong sacrifice for black. Pause the video and try to figure it out. I have to warn you, it's a very complicated sequence. I did not see it and I did not play it. I played the sacrifice one move later. Okay, so in this position you have a choice between knight d3 and knight c2. Knight c2 is much better, and the reason for that is that at the end of the sequence, 8 moves deep, you win your piece back. Now seeing that, I mean, is very hard. Here's the idea: knight c2. Now knight c2 or rook c2 are possible. Knight c2 is just better. If rook c2, then the queen is on the knight in many positions and you're threatening to take the bishop and to take the knight. So knight c2 is best. Knight takes d3. You have to save the bishop. Bishop a1. And now bishop c5. This is the idea. You're on the f pawn and you're gonna take on f pawn, or you're gonna take the f pawn, or you're gonna play bishop f2 anyway with tempo on the rook. So for example, f4 saving the pawn, bishop f2, let's say rook f1. Okay, knight takes rook, rook takes is forced, and now bishop takes c2. This is the idea that I did not see. I did see this far, but I didn't see the idea of bishop c2 undefending the bishop on a1. Okay, rook takes c2 and now bishop g3. The point is this bishop is undefended, king takes, queen g1 wins the bishop back, and black has an overwhelming advantage after something like queen g2, queen takes, and you have a rook for 2 pieces, but you also have 3 extra pawns, and this is just, should be game over, just rolling the pawns forward. Instead, I decided to prepare the sacrifice for an extra move. I played bishop f8, which allows white to solidify the position. If you turned on the engine here, it says equal after rook f1. So rook f1 defends the f pawn and, most importantly, doesn't leave the rook hanging to this fork after knight d3. My opponent did not appreciate that subtlety and he played f4. Now again, pause the video, calculate the sacrifice. Okay, you have 3 different options: knight c d3, knight b d3, or knight c2. I went for the second best, and that second best was too complicated for me to understand. Now the best move, of course, is again knight takes, and if rook takes, then knight d3, let's say f5, which should be best, knight e1, queen e1, and c5. And you just keep pushing your pawns forward, you give away the b5 square, but eventually black should have a winning advantage after this pawn is undefended, and you just steamroll white. If on knight c2 is played, then knight takes d3. Again, you have to save the bishop. Similar idea to the previous variation. Knight e1, queen e1, and black should be better, but I couldn't see how or why. To be honest, I didn't want to play c5. Okay, but this was best, and black should be winning this position. Instead, I played knight cd3, and after cd3, knight d3, he played bishop a1, which is a mistake. He could have continued simply, well, okay. f5 is probably best. I don't really have time to take the bishop because he just transfers the knight back to f3, and I really am getting destroyed over here. I just want my piece back. That's not an extra piece, and these pawns look extremely scary. But he did play bishop a1, and now black is again in the driver's seat. I took the wrong rook. That's another mistake compounded. I decided to take the c1 rook to... I don't know how to explain that. I didn't want a rook on e1. It seemed too scary to allow f5 and e6. It was much better to take on e1, but okay. Knight c1, the position is about equal. Rook c1 is forced. And now I had a choice between bishop c5, bishop b4, and bishop a3. And I ended up playing bishop c5, which is imprecise. The knights are defended, and my idea was, of course, bishop e4. And if you look at this position, I have a rook for two pieces, extra pawns as well. But white's activity is superb. I do have the bishop pair, but my two rooks are doing absolutely nothing. Okay, and I'd underestimated f5. Okay, what I should have done against f5 was e takes f5, knight takes f5, and queen takes b3, with an almost equal game, where once black takes on c5, I take on f3, for example, rook takes, bishop takes. Should be about equal. White has to be careful about the bishop on a1, about the pawn, if the bishop should fall, should be about equal. Instead, after f5, I played bishop takes d4. And after this, white is winning. Knight takes d4, and now he takes f5 is not the same thing, because there is nothing on f3 I can take. So bishop takes. And here I had to stop and think and try not to make my position worse than it is now. I should have played rook cd8 and just given up a pawn. After bishop takes, pawn takes, something like knight f5 and rook e6 would have kept my position playable at least. I have the b pawn to look forward to, I have the e pawn. If the bishop should move, I'm, for the moment at least, on the d file, and maybe I can go rook d5 and get two connected passed pawns. Instead, I took on f5, and now I'm busted. And I'm busted because there's a very strong kingside attack coming, which I didn't consider at all. He took on f5, and I saw knight f5, of course, and I'd intended to play queen b4, which I did play. This is in fact the only move. The idea is, of course, if the queen tries to come around to attack, then I have queen d2, check, and I also have queen f8 as a retreat to defend g7. He played rook f1, and after rook f1 I don't have a single move. There is nothing I can do. His position is so good that I wanted to resign. Knight d6 is coming. Everything is in white's favor. I should mention that knight d6 here did not work because of queen takes d6 and rook takes e2 check. Okay, so rook f1, rook e6. Again, knight d6 doesn't work because of queen d6. Rook f4, chasing my queen away, and queen f8. And again, knight d6 fails to queen d6. Queen g4, and yeah, it's resignation time. I have no way to prevent something taking on f7. And I played rook c8, he played knight d6, and he's just going to take on f7, next move. I have no moves. I gave up my queen because I had no better options. I played rook e7, rook f7, I have to take it. If I don't take it, then I lose. If I take with the rook, he takes on e6, and then I lose anyway. So I have to give up my queen. And this, of course, is hopeless. He played perfectly, I should say. His last probably 15 to 20 moves were top engine choices, like in the top 2 or 3. So he played an excellent game after my dubious sacrifice. Congratulations to him. And even at this point, he just converted so cleanly. I was really impressed. I remember sitting at the board being upset that I'm losing, but actually thinking, could I convert this as cleanly? I wouldn't play these moves. He was just playing very precisely, very well. Okay, so bishop d4, perfect. The bishop is coming to d6. King g8, don't ask. I just needed to untangle my pieces. Bishop c5, rook e8, bishop d6, and I have 0 moves. This rook doesn't have a single square. If this rook moves, the e6 rook hangs. So what do? I just moved my king around. Queen f5 check, king g8, and g4. b6 I tried c5 d4, king g2. I don't understand king g2, to be honest, but okay, maybe he saw some trouble along the h file. The engine says it's a good move. I don't know why. Maybe he wanted to avoid rook e2 at some point. I don't know. So I played c5, he played g5, I played g6, which seems to be the only move. Queen f3, and the last move of the game was d4, followed by a resignation by me. Yeah, this is no threat at all. He just plays g takes h6, and I don't have anything. If I play king h7, I lose. If I don't play king h7, he mates me on g7. But if king h7, then queen f7 and takes, and here, and that's it. So yeah, I got absolutely destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. But at this point where I had a big advantage, which I should have converted, I just couldn't figure out this sequence. I did not see bishop c2 followed by queen g1 check, winning the bishop on a1. This is an 8-move sequence, which was just too much for me. So once again, knight c2, knight c2, knight d3, bishop a1, saving the bishop, and bishop c5 on the f2 pawn. f4 saving the pawn, bishop f2. If the rook doesn't move, then you just take 2 rooks. Okay, so rook f1, knight c1, rook c1, bishop c2. This is just insane. And bishop g3. This is an amazing sequence. Again, I didn't see it. But still, even not seeing bishop takes c2 and queen g1, I should have understood that knight c2 is better than knight d3. Even in the position where I did end up sacrificing, knight c2 was much better. So yeah, I should have gone for that. Anyway, this game was tough. I don't remember losing this position with black against a weaker opponent ever. I lost it against Grandmaster Boško Abramović 2 years ago, or yeah, 2 years ago, and that's the last defeat I remember in this line. So yeah, and even in this game it wasn't about the opening. I got a good position, a convertible position with a sacrifice waiting to be played, but I couldn't figure it out. I hope you learned from my mistakes. I need to calculate more. I need to work on my tactics, of course. This wasn't an easy one, but still, I had enough time on the clock. I could have spent an hour to figure this out and play it out correctly. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.